In the days leading up to the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks, many Muslims who make their home in New York City felt under siege, especially with the many responses and demonstrations regarding the so-called Ground Zero Mosque. New York Daily News, September 6, 2011. It has in part, quote, "People are not welcome anymore building mosques in neighborhoods," says Muhammad Aziz, unquote. Quote, "We didn't experience that before 9/11, unquote. The day Islamic terrorists brought down the World Trade Center changed life in many ways, some dramatic, some subtle for the city's 600,000 Muslims. Either way, NYPD crime stats show the change was almost instantaneous. Between January 1st, 2001 and September 10th, 2001, police reported zero bias incidents against Muslims. In the 112 days after the Twin Towers toppled, there were 96, nearly one a day. Things slowly returned to normal with zero incidents reported in 2004, although many Muslims felt a growing sense of unease. Their fears were confirmed last year when a national furor erupted over the Park Street Mosque. Bias attacks on Muslim New Yorkers tripled from the year prior, up from 6 to 19, unquote. Quote, nationally, a Pew Research Center poll released last month found 43% of Muslim Americans reported experiencing harassment in the last year, unquote. Quote, Muhammad Aziz's assertion about anti-mosque sentiment was backed by a 35-page New York Civil Liberties Union report citing 9 recent incidents statewide, including public opposition to planned mosques in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. In an article published in Newsweek's August 27, 2012 edition, it has, in part, quote, on August 4th, teenagers pelted a mosque in Hayward, California with fruit. On August 5th, Wade Michael Page murdered 6 congregants and wounded a police officer at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin, quite possibly because he thought the Sikhs were Muslims. That same day, a man vandalized a mosque in North Smithfield, Rhode Island. On August 6th, a mosque in Joplin, Missouri was burned to the ground. On August 7th, 2 women threw pieces of pork at the site of a proposed Islamic center in Ontario, California. On August 10th, a man allegedly shot a pellet rifle at a mosque near Chicago while people prayed inside. On August 12th, attackers fired paintball guns at a mosque in Oklahoma City, and a homemade bomb filled with acid was thrown at an Islamic school in Lombard, Illinois. On August 15th, assailants threw a Molotov cocktail at the home of a Muslim family in Panama City, Florida. Except for the Sikh temple attack, little of this has made national press other than Salon.com, which has chronicled it well, in part because it doesn't fit the prevailing media narrative. At least since 9/11, terror and homeland security have been terms that connotate the danger that Muslims pose to non-Muslims, not the other way around. But this very fear of Muslim violence may be sparking anti-Muslim violence, and hysteria-peddling politicians bear some of the blame. During the Republican presidential primaries, Herman Cain said he would not appoint a Muslim to his cabinet. Newt Gingrich warned incessantly about Sharia being imposed upon the United States. In July, Michelle Bachmann and several other members of Congress insinuated Huma Abedin, one of the few American Muslims in a high-level government job, was an agent of Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood. John McCain, Marco Rubio, and John Boehner criticized Bachmann's smear, but Gingrich, Rush Limbaugh, Eric Cantor, and Romney advisor John Bolton defended it, unquote. New York Daily News, July 9, 2012. When speaking of the mass murderer Anders Breivik and his subsequent trial, one writer looked at where such mindsets come from. Quote, "What was absent from the scene, though, was blunt discussion of the anti-Islam ideology that influenced Breivik and caused him to be so fearful of Muslims that his only response was to slaughter fellow citizens whose politics he blamed for their presence." Unquote. Quote, "His delusions are hardly products of his imagination. Instead, they are the workings of a cabal of fear merchants who roam the post-9/11 world, scaring people about Islam." Unquote. In his 1,500-page manifesto, he quotes or mentions Robert Spencer and his partner Pamela Geller. Quote, "Pamela Geller and Spencer co-founded Stop Islamization of America, the American branch of a European hate franchise, Stop Islamization of Europe, a group whose soccer hooligan members have whipped the populations of Britain and Denmark into nationalist frenzies." Unquote. Their motto states, quote, "Racism is the lowest form of human stupidity, but Islamophobia is the height of common sense." Unquote. A deranged woman who told cops she detests Muslims was charged with a hate crime Saturday for shoving an Indian immigrant to his death in front of a Queens train, authorities said. Unquote. She said, quote, "I pushed a Muslim off the train tracks because I hate Hindus and Muslims." Unquote. As far back as 2001, the NYPD has been spying on Muslims in both New York and New Jersey. New York Newsday, July 26, 2012. It has, in part, quote, "Since 9/11, the NYPD has monitored the activities of Muslims in New York and far beyond. Detectives infiltrated mosques, eavesdropped in cafes, and kept tabs on Muslim student groups, including at Rutgers." Unquote. One of the NYPD's safe houses was in an apartment complex near Rutgers University. The Associated Press broke the story in 2009 after a 911 call was placed to the New Brunswick Police Department about the safe house from the building superintendent. Quote, "After a year-long fight with New Brunswick police released the tape of the 9/11 call and other materials this week." Unquote. Quote, "The call sent New Brunswick police and the FBI rushing to the apartment complex. None had been told the NYPD was in town." Unquote. And finally, quote, "NYPD's Deputy Commissioner for Legal Matters, Andrew Schaefer, has said detectives can operate outside New York because they aren't conducting official police duties." Unquote. Really? What is surveillance if not police work? Part of a study of culinary arts, agriculture, or architecture, or pharmacology? New York Newsday, March 6, 2012. Quote, "New Jersey Muslim leaders joined with other religious officials yesterday to demand reassurance from authorities that no one is being spied on because of his or her faith, as called for a federal inquiry into NYPD's surveillance activities grew, and the U.S. Attorney General said he was reviewing the matter." Unquote. Quote, "In Washington, Attorney General Eric Holder said during questioning at a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing that he was disturbed by what he'd read about the NYPD surveillance." Unquote. Quote, "Mayor Michael Bloomberg, as well as NYPD officials, have defended the department's activities in New Jersey as legal and warranted." Unquote. New York Daily News, March 5, 2012. Columnist Mike Lupica, in his op-ed, mentions 2 terror arrests based on the spying program on Muslims, as the subtitle has, quote, "Saved lives of New Yorkers." Unquote. Keep this date in mind, as a report issued several months later says something completely different. New York Newsday, August 22, 2012. Quote, in more than 6 years of spying on Muslim neighborhoods, eavesdropping on conversations, and cataloging mosques, the New York Police Department's Secret Demographics Unit never generated a lead or triggered a terrorism investigation, the department acknowledged in just unsealed court testimony. I'm going to read that first part again. Quote, in more than 6 years of spying on Muslim neighborhoods, eavesdropping on conversations, and cataloging mosques, the New York Police Department's Secret Demographics Unit never generated a lead or triggered a terrorism investigation, the department acknowledged in just unsealed court testimony. The Demographics Unit is at the heart of a police spying program built with help from the CIA, which assembled databases on where Muslims lived, shopped, worked, and prayed. Police infiltrated Muslim students groups, put informers in mosques, monitored sermons, and cataloged every Muslim in New York who adopted new Americanized surnames, unquote. The commander of the unit, part of the intelligence division, offered a first look at it after denials of its existence by the NYPD. The article goes on to report police gathered information on people even when there was no evidence of wrongdoing, simply because of their ethnicity and native language. The report revealed in late June was, quote, part of a long-standing federal civil rights case, unquote. Quote, documents obtained by the Associated Press show the unit conducted operations outside its jurisdiction, including in New Jersey. The FBI there said those operations damaged its partnerships and jeopardized national security, unquote. In response to the spying program, some Muslim leaders wrote a letter expressing their discontent and boycotted Mayor Bloomberg's annual interfaith breakfast. As if adding insult to injury, in January of 2012, another news story of a documentary on Muslims shown to NYPD police officers came to light. It was said to have had statements from Commissioner Ray Kelly and others and was for a time part of police training. When the story broke, there were calls for Commissioner Kelly to resign by several Muslim groups. New York Newsday, January 28, 2012, quote, NYPD Commissioner Ray Kelly said Friday that he wouldn't resign in the face of a demand from some Muslims angered that cops had been shown the documentary The Third Jihad, a film that Kelly has denounced as inflammatory. A group of Muslim leaders saying the film encourages Americans to be suspicious of all Muslims on Wednesday called for the resignation of Kelly and his spokesman, Paul Brown, unquote. Commissioner Kelly previously had acknowledged his participation was a mistake and apologized for the film's showing by an NYPD sergeant. Some media outlets continue with their lies and double talk of the spying program on Muslims provided leads to terrorism arrests, while the official report that was part of a legal inquiry denied this. It is also interesting to see how one city official was given a free pass for a minor indiscretion, being part of an inflammatory film, but several years ago, a Muslim principal was fired by the same administration for her use of the word intifada on a T-shirt and was never rehired, despite a federal judge acknowledging her illegal dismissal. Is this a double standard in our land of freedom and justice for all?
Proud to be down with the Muslim crowd. M-U-S-L-I-M. I'm so blessed to be with them. M-U-S-L-I-M. I'm so blessed to be with them. M-U-S-L-I-M. I'm so blessed to be with them. M-U-S-L-I-M. I'm so blessed to be